Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we are going to be doing this V pattern, or what they call a V fold, tie-dye style tumbler. As always, I'll make sure to put everything I use today into the description box below, so that way you guys can shop those items if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. Now today I am using a 20-ounce skinny tumbler, and I'm going to go ahead and get my epoxy on here because I'm going to use the epoxy method to apply my glitter. So I'm using chunky glitters today, so I'm going to apply a little bit more epoxy than you're used to. That's just going to really help out those glitters lay nice and flat for us. The glitter I'm going to be using today is called Moonstone, and you can find that at sscglitters.com if you would like to. Now I'm just going to go ahead and fully load up my tumbler with my glitter. Now, because I am using a chunky glitter, what I like to do is kind of sprinkle my glitter on, then I'll kind of let everything kind of sink and settle down, make sure it's nice and flat, and then I'll come through and sprinkle on a little bit more if it needs it. Now after my glitter is applied, I'm going to go ahead and take my opposite hand. I'm going to go ahead and push some of that glitter right up off the rim. That's just going to help us out when we go to sand and all that. And I'm going to come through and really make sure that those glitters are nice and squished down into our epoxy. But if you notice, because we used a little bit more epoxy than usual, it's already pretty flat for me. So now after that, I'm going to go ahead and set this off to the side. I'm going to let that cure completely before we move on to the next step. Now after it has cured, I'm going to go ahead and take my chip brush and I'm going to sweep away any extra glitters that just didn't really get adhered down to our epoxy. This is really going to help out when we go to start doing our tie-dye look, so that way our brushes don't get gunked up with glitter. Now working straight over top of our raw glitter, we're going to go ahead and start making that tie-dye look. And the first thing we need to do is kind of segment off our tumbler so that way it has equal portions. And I've seen this really cool trick on TikTok by Lady T Create. I'll make sure to tag her TikTok down below where I've seen this, but she showed how she uses rubber bands to kind of segment off her V-splits and all that, and I thought that was just genius. So I'm excited to show you guys this today because I can't wait to use it again on different tumblers. So as you've seen, I'm just stretching a big rubber band straight down the center. I'm going to go ahead and make sure all my lines are nice and straight and make sure that it's nice and even on the bottom, making sure that it is pretty much split into two for me. Let's take another rubber band and doing it going the opposite way. I'm going to go ahead and put it straight into the middle, making 4 even sections for ourselves. But what I really loved about using the rubber bands to section off things is that this can be used on curvy tumblers as well. So if you wanted to make this pattern on a curvy tumbler, you could do it on that as well. Now after you have your rubber band template all laid down, you're going to go ahead and collect your supplies. I'm just using an angled brush. I'm using this tray. I got most of this stuff from the dollar store except for like the inks and stuff, but you want to pick out your colors. I'm just using 3 colors. I have a paper towel to clean off my brush and some isopropyl alcohol. So we're just trying to keep in mind that we're creating these V patterns. So we're going to start at the bottom and work our way all the way to the top, or however way you feel more comfortable. You can go from top to bottom, does not matter. But we're going to go ahead and use a piece of painter's tape so that way we know our lines are nice and straight, because that's the whole point of this V pattern. If you've ever seen tie-dye shirts with the V fold done to it, they're very straight, very, very V formed. So we want to try to keep that as straight as possible for ourselves. So I'm just, like I said, I'm going to use this painter's tape to get that line started. Now I wanted the yellow to be my center portion, so all I'm going to do is take a little bit of my yellow alcohol ink and I'm just going to sketch right outside of that painter's tape all the way up to my point at the top there. So whatever colors you pick out, you just want to keep in mind again that this first color you put down is going to be your main focal, kind of what you branch all your colors off of. So now that that side's done, we're just going to come up and attach a piece of tape starting at the top and making our way down to the bottom on the other side, creating our first V. Now I'm just going to speed it up ever so slightly because I was moving a little bit slow, but I really want you guys to be able to see exactly what I'm doing so you guys know what to do if you go to recreate this look. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect my bottom and bring it all the way up to the top. Like I said, we're just making that first V. I'm going to go ahead and remove that tape and show you guys what I have so far. So there we go. Look at that. See, we did it. Our first V. So we're just going to do the same exact process around the back, doing the same thing where we attach and connect down to the bottom, creating another V. Now you guys know I absolutely love tie-dye. If you watch my vlogs, you guys know I love tie-dye. So when I seen this trick using the rubber bands, it just really clicked for me, because there's been so many times that I've wanted to recreate certain tie-dye looks, and I'm just like, how would I even do that, you know, without it looking too sloppy? So I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I cannot create more things with these rubber bands. All right, so we have our template all sketched out for us. Again, this is going to be our center line for that V look. Now we're going to go ahead and take that same center color that we used, and we're going to expand those lines a bit more. So as you see, as I dip my brush into my alcohol ink, I make sure that I wipe off as much excess as I possibly can before I paint it onto my tumbler. This will just help prevent any type of pooling that may occur once you go to paint it on. You want it to look more brush stroked rather than it blobbed on. So earlier you seen me show you guys kind of the brush motion that I'm going to be doing. You just want to keep it straight up and down. Again, keeping with that straight uniform V look we're going for here. So I'm just going to continue this motion completely around until both sides are nicely filled in with that yellow. Now the reason why I chose yellow for the center was because I'm using a blue and a pink, and I knew that if I use blue and yellow it will make my green, and pink and yellow will make this kind of orangey peach color. So I'm actually going to make my yellow band a bit bigger than I'm going to be making my other colors, just so that way they can blend together and it looked like I added more inks than I actually did. So if you only have a certain amount of color of inks, that's fine. You could absolutely come through and blend certain colors to form other colors for yourself. So it's absolutely okay if you don't have a lot of alcohol inks you're working with. Just go through and see what you can blend to do up all kinds of other colors for yourself. And after you get your first line all painted down, this is pretty much what it should be looking like so far. Looking fabulous, looking good. Before I move on to my next color, I am going to kind of wash my brush off a little bit with some rubbing alcohol, and I'm also going to go ahead and remove these rubber bands as well. Did I need to keep the rubber bands while I did the center? Probably not. So completely up to you guys if you wanted to keep it on after the first part. Now I almost forgot to come through and do up my bottom because I wanted to connect it together on the bottom here. So I'm just gonna take my brush, take that yellow, and just connect it over to each side. And of course come through and fan it out a bit as well to match our other lines. And then we are ready to add another color. So as you can see here, I'm trying to make sure that when I come up to the very top of my points, that I'm trying to keep, again, that straight point going, so that way it keeps that V formation. I know you guys were like, okay, we get it. Yes, I know, but I'm just saying, you know. So we're gonna do the same exact thing where we take our next color and we're gonna do those straight up and down strokes going all the way down to the bottom. So we are also trying to keep in mind that that blue is going to mix with the yellow, forming that green. So we're going to have pretty much two colors going on at the bottom here. So it'll turn from a yellow to a little bit of a green color, and then down into our blue. And then towards the end, I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to fade everything together to kind of get rid of some of these bigger lines we have going on. So this is what we have so far. So you can see there's a little bit of that green coming through, and then it kind of fades right down into that blue. So now, of course, I'm going to do the same thing along the bottom as well. Just connecting that blue straight over, keeping it straight in line. As you can see, I'm doing more of off to each side rather than the up and down motions like on the main base. It blends very well together in the end. So now I'm just going to flip it around and do the same thing on the back side. Now, the reason why I'm kind of telling you guys this is because I almost put that blue in the wrong triangle there. It almost happened. but I remembered. Okay, so here we go. There, right there. That's where I want to do it. Okay, I got it figured out. So again, I'm just going to do the same exact thing I did right around the front side, making sure I keep that pointy V shape going for myself. And then after I get done doing this, I'll make sure to go ahead and come through and do the bottom as well. Just making sure that I connect everything through so everything's nice and fluid for ourselves. Then after that, I'm just going to come through and kind of check on it, make sure everything looks about even for myself, kind of touch up any little areas that I want to touch up. But that's looking pretty good to me. And now I am ready to move on to my next color. And of course, I'm going to make sure to wash my brush after every time because I only have one brush. But I mean, if you want to, you can have, 3 separate brushes so you don't have to do this. But I'm just going to wash this one off and then move on to the next color. Now starting right above the yellow this time around, I'm going to come through and do my finishing color, which I used a pink. And to me, after this was all said and done, it just really reminded me of watermelon slices because obviously this design can take you anywhere. You can decorate it however you would like, but to me, it just felt like watermelon slices. But as I apply my pink, I'm just trying to keep in mind that I want to blend it down just into my yellow, just ever so slightly to give me that kind of peachy orange color in the center and then expand up into the pink. So now that that side's done, I'm going to go ahead and flip it and do my other side. And after I get my other side applied, we're going to come through and really finish it up with fading these colors a little bit more into each other. Now just using straight rubbing alcohol, I'm going to dab that right onto my brush and I'm going to start in my lightest color first. I'm going to start, well, actually not with my lightest. I'm going to start with my pink first and make my way down this tumbler. And all I'm going to be doing is you don't want your brush too drenched in your rubbing alcohol because it'll start to bloom out your alcohol, your inks a little bit too much. So you want to make sure that you dab it off just a bit, just so that way you can really come in here and just fade everything. So pretty much that white glitter that was in the center is going to become kind of this lighter pink color as you start to blend. So pretty much those harsh lines that we made and the pink and the blue, we're just going to take those and fade them out. So after you fade your pink out, you're going to come through and wash your brush off again, making sure you dab off any extra of that rubbing alcohol again so we don't bloom out our colors too much. You're going to come through and kind of melt that yellow a little bit more up into the pink first and then down into that blue, creating more of that orange and green we would like. And of course, then to end it, we're going to end with our darkest color that we have on the bottom here, just rinsing my brush off just a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and take those harsh lines and fade them out, creating kind of a lighter blue. I didn't color it in all the way. I did leave just a little bit of white there at the bottom, just a little bit of a fade. And of course, I'm going to come through and do the very bottom as well. But my biggest thing I can tell you guys when it comes to doing tie-dye tumblers is it's all about the blending at the end. So even if you have really harsh brush strokes to begin with, it's not a big deal because we're going to come through and blend it out very well to really create that tie-dye look we are after. And of course, when it comes to this particular pattern, the V pattern here, just making sure that you're keeping your brush strokes straight up and down so that way we don't lose the integrity of that V shape we're after. Now after I get done blending this out and everything, I'm going to go ahead and stick it off to the side. I'm going to let that ink dry on my tumbler for about 8 hours or so, and then I'll be ready to add our first coating of epoxy over top. Now, just to make myself feel more comfortable, even though I let my ink sit, I went ahead and I did do a coating of my semi-gloss clear. Usually you don't have to, but this just makes me feel more comfortable in knowing that my colors will be nice and secure on my tumbler there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put 20 milliliters of epoxy right over top of my raw glitter. I'm going to go ahead and place it onto my turner. I'm going to hit it up a couple rotations, just do a couple rotations with my heat gun, and then I'm going to let that cure. Now, because I used a chunky glitter and I don't like to use thicker coats of epoxy, I like to do smaller increments of epoxy. I went ahead and did a second coating of epoxy over top, another 20 mLs right over top here. I'm going to go ahead and let that second coat cure, and we're ready to add our decals. Now that that is nice and cured, we're going to go ahead and come through and I'm going to go ahead and clean up my rim really good. I'm only going to sand up around the rim and I'm only going to sand around the bottom. The reason for that is because the decal I'm going to be using needs a nice smooth surface without any scratches on it because you'll be able to see it through it. So I don't want to sand the middle at all, but it is nice and smooth for me anyways, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm just trying to get those kind of lumps off the bottom here for me. So after I get that all sanded down, I'm just going to come through and clean it up with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and a paper towel before we move on to the next step. So like I said, it just really felt like watermelon slices on the side, you know? So I happen to have this decal sheet. It's called Just Peachy, and that's from Mr. Nola's Glitter. If it is available in their shop, I'll make sure to tag it down below. If it is not there yet, just keep checking back. It might not be released yet because this was a part of their Muse box, but I think it was from last month's Muse box, so I'm not sure if it's available just yet. So I'm just gonna go ahead and trim up a little bit around our quote here. And the watermelon seeds I actually had from a watermelon project I did last year. So I'll go ahead and tag that video for you guys if you want to check that out. But it's just simple watermelon seeds cut out on black vinyl. So after I got figured out where I want to put my quote, I went ahead and got that applied to my tumbler. You see here that it has a clear backing, but the quote itself is nice and vibrant because it has a white backing. The only thing you really want to make sure you do with these is you want to burnish them down very, very well. If you make sure that you burnish them down very well, once you apply your epoxy over top, you won't be able to see any type of seam around your decal. Now let's say you accidentally get a little air bubble trapped inside of there. Not a big deal. You just want to take a very small, like a sewing needle or something, or if you use a weeding tool with a very small point, and just poke a very small hole into it, and then take your fingernail or whatever you have to kind of scrape your decals with and just press the air out of it, and you won't even be able to see that there was a little air bubble in there. But these things are super duper tough. You could even apply them to things and not even put epoxy over top. I've done that with other projects like acrylic tumblers. You know, these things are pretty awesome. I really love their decals. Now the next step is just taking my little watermelon seeds and lining those straight down the sides here, right in what looks like to me the watermelon slices. And you know, it's always the easiest thing that always kind of gives me the most problem. These seeds kept giving me a little bit of a problem because I wanted them separated a certain way. I wanted them to be more uniformed, going again with like the straight lines of everything, and I kept having to peel them back to make sure that they were nice and even with each other. And after I fussed with that enough, it's now ready for its last two finishing coats of epoxy, and she is ready to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.